My name is Sarah Fagan. As Larry Fagan's daughter and comedian in the family, I get the honor of telling Larry's story today. My dad was born in January of 1951 in Los Angeles. No, not Hollywood. Not the beach either. We like sun protection. More like near the airport in Randy's Donuts. He did normal things like Boy Scouts, participated in Y Indian Guides with his father, played with cars, ate at Anderson's split pea soup, and even pet some of the only living creatures in Los Angeles. My dad's first experience with a computer was in junior high school, which was a big deal in the 1960s. It was something of a personal computer because I guess only one person could actually use it at a time. Now clearly this is not a picture of my father. Notice the quality and quantity of this gentleman's hair. However, during the summers in high school, my dad worked at UCLA on medical applications. Using this $250,000 computer display, he managed to crash the mainframe computer. Realizing his mistake, he left for college. He determined the farthest technical school from Los Angeles, but still trying to stay in the US, he was off to Boston. When he got to MIT, the everyday computing was still pretty primitive. Most students used slide rules and mechanical calculators. One thing that he remembers clearly is that there were these experimental computers that you could actually walk through, and computer displays that looked like they were stolen from a World War II radar screen. But he did manage to have fun on the East Coast. He attended Grateful Dead concerts and even shaved his beard. Of special mention, Ed Fredkin and Nicholas Negroponte were mentors for my father while he was at MIT. Ed Fredkin taught a course in critical thinking, and Nicholas is the master of giving demos. One of their favorite projects was creating an experimental habitat for gerbils. They used software and a robotic arm to remodel the living space. Dr. Negroponte ran a lab that used small mini-computers to look at user interface issues. Now this was long before the Media Lab. Now not everything at MIT was fun. My dad finished vector calculus class on a Friday. He thought he'd never use those skills again. But on Monday, he started a new job at the Jet Propulsion Lab in Pasadena and was handed this document. The first thing they said was, differentiate this equation and write a computer program to calculate miscourse maneuvers. Clearly he got the calculations right because they made it into orbit shortly after. After 2 years in Los Angeles, he heard about a new computer system at Stanford for researching artificial intelligence in medicine. So he was off to Stanford to work on the Mycin project. There was a tremendous group of faculty, students, and staff that worked together on the Mycin project. Mycin was an amazing expert system for determining appropriate treatment for severe infections. Larry helped with the development of the meningitis knowledge base. The system mostly looked at data at one static point in time. However, many medical problems required looking at patient data along the temporal dimension. Ted Shortliff and Bruce Buchanan worked with Stan Cohen and others to develop the Mycin system using the Sumex computer. Sumex was run by Tom Rindfleisch, who spent decades providing a marvelous computing infrastructure for the biomedical computing work at Stanford. Larry particularly wanted to recognize Ed Feigenbaum, Penny Nee, and Geo Wiederhold as mentors who guided him as he shifted from the Mycin project to his thesis on interpreting data in the intensive care unit. In the 1970s, John Osborne at Pacific Medical Center began collecting data at the bedside of his patients. Ed and Penny felt that the knowledge-based approaches that they pioneered for military data could be applied to the data analysis tasks in the intensive care unit. The project, called VM for Ventilator Manager, would interpret the time-oriented data as the patient moved from one stage of critical care to the next. The idea was that data would flow through the ICU and be processed locally, and then be interpreted by programs running on the SUMEX system and then fed back to the clinicians at the bedside. The project was one of the first to process real-time medical data using AI techniques. But by far, the most important thing that happened during Larry's PhD training was he met a biologist. And she said, "What is a computer science student like you doing in a microbiology class like this?" Apparently this was a big turn-on because Tracy, my mom, and Larry were married in 1980 and have been married for 32 years. Fortunately, this wasn't too bad of a distraction, and Larry was able to finish his PhD degree. Shortly after, a number of people told him about a 2-year med program for researchers with PhD degrees. But about the same time, the artificial intelligence business opportunities started to really take off. So he had to make a decision. And one thing that had bugged Larry is that he understood computing but did not have a deep understanding of medical terminology or milieu. He had worked on projects in infectious diseases, pulmonary medicine, intensive care units, and oncology, so it was time to invest in more training, and he was off to Miami.
Miami.
After graduating with his MD degree, his father showed up with a banner that read the following. He chose to actually listen to this advice. Larry came back to Stanford in 1983 to work with Ted on the newly formed Medical Information Sciences program and to work on projects that extended what we had learned from the earlier medical computer work at Stanford. Darlene Bayan worked closely with Ted to get the program started. In the mid-1980s, they moved out of their building. The MSOB became home to an incredible set of students, staff, and faculty. Of course, in 1998, some of the students and staff got together to kid Larry about his love of suspenders and hats. In 2000, Ted handed off the training program to Russ. We're skipping over lots of research projects and training program activities, but we couldn't leave out this picture of Larry and Mary Jean Oliva at the Stanford booth at AMIA. Lastly, Larry really wanted to mention that John DeMario, Mary Jean, and Nancy Leonardson have really helped keep the program running smoothly. And somewhere in the middle of all this timeline, Larry and Tracy had 2 kids, Michael and me, Sarah. Michael is currently working on his master's in manufacturing engineering at Worcester Polytech in upstate Massachusetts. And I'm mostly just trying to defrost from our latest May snowstorm in northern Colorado.